September 13th, 1942. The Barents Sea, 250 nautical miles north of Norway. HMS Ulster Queen, a converted Irish sea passenger ferry displacing 3,791 tons, opens fire on the largest coordinated air attack ever launched against an Arctic convoy. 105 Heinkel 111 torpedo bombers are approaching from astern in a formation the Germans call the Golden Comb. 8 aircraft wide, dropping simultaneously, impossible to evade. Ulster Queen's 6 4-inch guns begin firing at maximum elevation. Each shell weighs 35 pounds. Rate of fire, 15 rounds per minute per gun. The director control tower tracks the incoming formation and feeds continuous corrections to all 3 turrets. In the next 8 minutes, 8 merchant ships are torn apart by torpedoes. The convoy loses more tonnage in a single attack than most convoys lose in an entire crossing, but Ulster Queen keeps firing. For the next 18 days, her crew will remain at defence stations almost continuously. They will expend nearly 1,100 rounds of 4-inch ammunition. They will help destroy 44 German aircraft, and when it is over, the Luftwaffe's trained torpedo bomber crews will be so depleted that they will never again mount such an attack against an Arctic convoy. How did a pre-war Belfast ferry become one of the most effective anti-aircraft platforms in the Royal Navy? The answer lies in a desperate improvisation that the Navy itself dismissed as makeshift, manned by crews it treated as second class, fighting in conditions that would have challenged any purpose-built warship. By mid-1940, Britain faced an air threat to its convoys that no existing warship could counter economically. Focke-Wulf 200 Condors operating from occupied France sank 85 ships totaling 363,000 tons between August 1940 and February 1941. Churchill called them the scourge of the Atlantic. The Royal Navy had purpose-built anti-aircraft cruisers, but they were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. HMS Curlew was sunk off Narvik. HMS Calcutta was bombed during the Crete evacuation. HMS Cairo was torpedoed during Operation Pedestal. The new Dido-class cruisers were superior in every respect, but each cost approximately £1.48 million and took more than 2 years to build. They were far too valuable for routine convoy escort. The Admiralty needed anti-aircraft firepower that could be deployed quickly and cheaply. The solution was to take merchant ships and arm them with the same 4-inch guns fitted to converted cruisers. Between 1939 and 1941, the Royal Navy converted 8 merchant vessels into auxiliary anti-aircraft ships. They came from wildly different origins. 3 were Bankline cargo freighters, large twin diesel ships built by Harland and Wolff. 2 were McAndrews Line fruit carriers, smaller vessels the crews called banana boats. 2 were passenger ferries, one from the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company and one from the Belfast Steamship Company. The 8th was a Canadian cruise liner. HMS Alynbank displaced 5,151 tons and made 12 knots. HMS Palomares displaced 1,896 tons and made 16 knots. HMS Ulster Queen displaced 3,791 tons and made 18 knots. HMCS Prince Robert displaced 6,892 tons and made 22 knots. They had nothing in common except their armament. The Bankline cargo ships received 8 4-inch guns in 4 twin turrets, plus 8 2-pounder pom-poms in 2 quadruple mountings. The fruit carriers and ferries received 6 4-inch guns in 3 twin turrets. Prince Robert received 10 4-inch guns in 5 twin turrets, making her one of the most powerful anti-aircraft ships in the war. All received director-control towers that could coordinate fire from multiple turrets against a single target. All received radar for air warning and fire control. All received progressive upgrades to close-range weapons as they became available, eventually carrying up to 10-20mm Oerlikons. The 4-inch Mark 16 was the key to everything. It could elevate to 80 degrees, engage aircraft at ranges exceeding 12,000 yards, and fire 15 aimed rounds per minute. No corvette or frigate carried anything comparable. No Hunt-class destroyer could match its volume of fire against coordinated air attack. A merchant ship conversion cost perhaps £50,000 to £100,000. A Dido-class cruiser cost £1.48 million. The arithmetic was unanswerable. The first test came before any of these ships reached a convoy. On July 4, 1940, HMS Foylebank was anchored at Portland Harbour, working up as a harbour defence ship. At 8:15 in the morning, 26 Junkers 87 Stukas attacked in near vertical dives. Foylebank was stationary, She had no room to manoeuvre. Approximately 22 bombs struck the ship in 8 minutes. Electric power failed almost immediately, disabling the power-operated gun mountings. Leading seaman Jack Mantle was in charge of the starboard pom-pom. A bomb shattered his left leg early in the attack. With power gone, he switched to hand-cranked operation and continued firing. He was wounded again in many places as the attack continued. He died at his gun. Foylebank's return fire brought down 2 confirmed Stukas, but the ship lost 176 of her 298 crew, a 60% fatality rate. Mantle's posthumous Victoria Cross remains the only VC ever awarded for action in British territorial waters. It was a brutal opening lesson. These ships could fight. They could also die very quickly. HMS Springbank was torpedoed by U-201 in September 1941 while escorting convoy OG-74. Her merchant hull offered no torpedo protection. She sank with heavy casualties, but the survivors kept sailing, and the convoys they escorted grew more dangerous. HMS Ulster Queen became the first auxiliary anti-aircraft ship assigned to a Russian convoy when she joined PQ-15 in April 1942. During sustained air attacks on May 1 through 3, her guns shot down 3 confirmed aircraft. At Murmansk, where German raids came on average every other day, she destroyed another attacker. Convoy PQ-16 in May 1942 demonstrated what these ships could do under maximum pressure. HMS Alynbank joined the convoy from Iceland on May 23. When the Luftwaffe launched its maximum effort, Alynbank's crew counted 108 separate air attacks in a single day. Critically, with the cruiser covering force withdrawn, only Alynbank and the destroyer Martin could elevate their main armament for effective anti-aircraft fire. Every other escort had to wait until aircraft closed to short range. When the convoy split for the final approach, Alynbank escorted the Arkhangelsk section through the White Sea alone, fighting off Stuka attacks while Martin could reply only with small arms. The escort commander praised Alynbank's exemplary performance, but he noted grimly that most other escorts lacked adequate firepower against air attack. If you're finding this useful, subscribing takes a second and supports the channel. Then came PQ-17 in July 1942, the most infamous convoy disaster of the war. HMS Palomares and HMS Palomares served as the convoy's 2 close escort anti-aircraft ships. When the First Sea Lord's catastrophic order to scatter came on July 4, both ships became the backbone of survival. Captain Jauncey on Palomares collected escorts and merchant ships and led them to Novaya Zemlya, where the convoy commodore held a conference aboard Palomares to organise survivors into a new convoy. Captain Lawford on Pazarika gathered another group. During the reformed convoy's transit to Arkhangelsk, approximately 40 bombers attacked for 4 hours. 2 more merchant ships were sunk, but the escort's combined fire brought down 4 aircraft. Only 11 of PQ-17's 35 merchant ships survived. Without the anti-aircraft ship's leadership in the aftermath, the number would almost certainly have been lower. PQ-18, in September 1942, was the defining action. Both Alynbank and Ulster Queen served as close escort alongside the escort carrier HMS Avenger, the first time an Arctic convoy had both dedicated anti-aircraft ships and carrier-borne fighters. The Luftwaffe threw everything it had, over 100 torpedo bomber attacks, nearly as many high-level and dive-bombing runs. On the first day of massed attacks, the Heinkels executed the Golden Comb tactic. Line abreast torpedo runs from astern. 8 merchant ships sunk in minutes. But by the second day, the escorts had adapted. Ulster Queen left her position to manoeuvre freely, her 6 4-inch guns breaking up attacking formations while Avenger's Sea Hurricanes harried the bombers. On September 14 alone, 21 German aircraft were destroyed. PQ-18 lost 13 of 40 merchant ships, but the Luftwaffe lost 44 aircraft and 4 U-boats. The German Naval War Staff described the results as dearly bought and unsatisfactory. The trained torpedo bomber crews were never replaced. Yet despite this performance, the auxiliary anti-aircraft ships faced persistent institutional contempt within the Royal Navy itself. Captain Adam of Ulster Queen documented this with devastating clarity in his classified reports. After PQ-15, he wrote that from Ulster Queen's association with the convoy, he formed the impression that the home fleet regarded the anti-aircraft ship as a sort of Hermaphrodite, not quite man of war, nor merchant ship, and as such barely entitled to have a knowledge of its subject. Adam was excluded from escort conferences. Fleet officers who misunderstood his ship's capabilities positioned it in the worst possible location, boxed up in the middle of the convoy between merchant columns, where its fire was masked by 2 merchant ships and useless against the low-flying torpedo bombers that posed the deadliest threat. The correct position, Adam argued, was outside but close to the wing column, with freedom to manoeuvre. When he finally got permission to do this during PQ-18, the results spoke for themselves. How did these converted merchant ships compare to purpose-built alternatives? A Dido-class anti-aircraft cruiser carried 10 5.25-inch guns in 5 twin turrets. It made 32 knots. It had armour protection and watertight subdivision to warship standards. It cost £1.48 million and took more than 2 years to build. An auxiliary anti-aircraft ship carried 6 to 10 4-inch guns. It made 12 to 22 knots depending on the hull. It had no armour and no torpedo protection. It cost £50,000 to £100,000 and could be converted in months. The Dido class was superior by every conventional measure, but Didos were consumed by Mediterranean fleet operations. Only 16 were ever built. 6 were lost. They could not be spared for routine convoy escort. Hunt-class escort destroyers were purpose-built from 1939, but Captain Adam identified their critical weakness. A Hunt-class destroyer fitted with only one director is not an efficient substitute for an anti-aircraft ship, because forward and after gun groups needed to engage different targets simultaneously. Hunts also lacked the range for Atlantic and Arctic routes. Catapult-armed merchantmen offered a single Hurricane fighter that had to ditch after one sortie. The pilot's survival depended on being rescued from Arctic waters. Escort carriers existed in meaningful numbers only from late 1942. For 30 months, from late 1939 to mid-1943, the auxiliary anti-aircraft ships were the only dedicated long-range anti-aircraft escorts available for the convoy routes where air attack was most lethal. The survivors evolved. HMS Palomares and HMS Ulster Queen were converted to fighter direction ships in 1943, fitted with advanced radar for directing carrier-borne fighters. In this role, they served at Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and the invasion of southern France. Ulster Queen eventually became the flagship of Commander-in-Chief East Indies during the Malaya landings in September 1945. HMS Alynbank found a different kind of final service. On June 9, 1944, 3 days after D-Day, she was deliberately scuttled as a breakwater blockship protecting the Mulberry Harbour at Arromanches. HMS Tynwald, whose pre-war career included evacuating 8,953 troops from Dunkirk, was torpedoed by an Italian submarine off Algeria in November 1942. HMS Poserica was bombed off Algeria in January 1943 and capsized in harbour. 4 of 8 auxiliary anti-aircraft ships were lost. A 50% attrition rate that reflected both the danger of their assignments and the fragility of their merchant ship construction. Think back to that moment on September 13, 1942. Ulster Queen, a converted Belfast ferry with 6 4-inch guns, facing 105 torpedo bombers in the largest coordinated air attack ever launched against an Arctic convoy. The critics who dismissed these ships as makeshift were wrong. The fleet officers who excluded their captains from planning conferences were wrong. The staff who positioned them uselessly in the centre of convoys were wrong. And when PQ-18 reached Arkhangelsk, with 27 of 40 merchant ships intact, when the Luftwaffe's torpedo bomber force was shattered beyond recovery, when the German Naval War Staff admitted the results were dearly bought and unsatisfactory, the arithmetic proved them all wrong. 8 converted merchant ships, cargo freighters, banana boats, passenger ferries, a cruise liner, £50,000 per conversion against $1.48 million for a cruiser. 30 months of service in the most dangerous waters in the world. The Hermaphrodites held the line.